to county chapters, so it's all kind of one big umbrella that starts and ends with Stewart Rhodes.
And what was the appeal of the message to you? What is the grievance of the Oath Keepers? Why did they storm the Capitol, and why do they continue to this day to threaten various election officials, politicians, media figures, and others?
Well, the message varies. It evolves over time, and it's really driven by the conspiracy theories of the day. So, back when they were first kind of starting out, it jumped off of the Tea Party movement. Then we saw the Jade Helm conspiracy theories kind of really drive some of the messaging that they were doing with the orders they won't follow. We've seen that as they've radicalized more towards a racist bent, that they will not replace us, and we saw them courting people like Richard Spencer, and then of course with the just bogus claims of a stolen election.
So it's racist, it's anti-Semitic. They claim to be anti-tyranny. 1776 is a day that was posted, became a hashtag around January 6th. But what for you back then? What was going on in your life? What was the appeal of the message that you just described? And then what made you leave?
Well, I think there's some confusion there. I actually was never a member. I was an employee. Now, that's even worse, in my opinion, because I was, putting out that propaganda. I initially started interacting with the Oath Keepers when Bundy Ranch happened. I was an independent journalist working for some online radio outlets, and I got embedded with Stewart Rhodes during the Bundy Ranch standoff. Then I was invited back. I drove down to Bundy Ranch with Stewart. I was invited back to the Sugar Pine Mine standoff, and then the White Hope standoff. And then there was a PR statement put out that included my name because I'd helped them out a bit. So I lost my day job, and Stewart was there with a employment offer as the national media director and one of the associate editors on the website. And it started as more of what he would term an educational outreach, and they really claimed to be not racist in those things, but we saw as he found the membership base could grow and the donations could grow, he more and more courted that alt-right as it kind of came up with Richard Spencer and others, even outright racists. Yeah. So it was kind of an evolution, and I walked away because of that radicalization on the racism. I actually had walked into a conversation with some key core members and associates in a public grocery store where we were all living, where they were discussing that the Holocaust had never happened, and I just could not. I went back home to my wife, and my wife's medically disabled. I got 2 kids that are living in a house still, 2 daughters, and then with we didn't know what we were going to do with the loss of the income, but I couldn't abide it at that point. I just put in my resignation.
So how did you, you're making a distinction between being a follower of the Oath Keepers, a member of the group, and just an employee of it, but certainly you heard some of the rhetoric, and you knew what the members were up to. So how did you rationalize working for that group?
Well, again, it radicalized over time. It started off just being kind of very anti-government and then went to the racist side. I've always had a healthy distrust of the government, and so it kind of started there, but as things got more and more racist, I just couldn't do it.
So let's talk about the links between the Oath Keepers and organizations like that and former President Trump and the people around him. From what you know from firsthand, and also if you just speak more broadly, because you were, for a time, so intimately involved with the group, what was the appeal there? Was this a natural fit between these radical organizations and the former president?
Yeah, it lent to the air of legitimacy. They oftentimes were courting local politicians up in the Pacific Northwest, or examples of that. They wanted to be seen as aligning with these politicians because it did give them a sense of legitimacy, and that kind of appealed to the base and appealed to the egos of Stewart Rhodes and other leaders. And I think Trump really kind of gave them permission to continue doing what they're doing, and it kind of was, I see it as, as much as they want to message that they're not a paramilitary group or not a militia, They really are, and I think Stewart had always seen himself as being kind of this clandestine paramilitary leader, and having a sitting president, whether directly or indirectly, messaging your group and other groups like yours, I think really fed that.
And we certainly know members were there on January 6th. And the former president, is widely established, sort of gave license to some of this hate crimes spiked during his time in office. So after what we saw on January 6th, we know the former president is considering running again. From what you know, people you still talk to in the world with the Oath Keepers, and would they support him again were he to run in 2024?
I think so. I mean, that core base is going to be there. They're still drinking the Kool-Aid, so I think absolutely he'll have support from those types of groups.
And there wasn't time at the hearing for you to give an opening statement, but you had written it, so we want to read part of what you wrote. Quote, "It is important for me to be here today in front of the Select Committee because all Americans need to pay attention to the genuine danger that extremist groups like the Oath Keepers pose to us in our society. There have been times when I've personally discounted the reach of this group and its violent messaging. This was a mistake, because in the end, they were able to muster a group of heavily armed and outfitted members who've been trained in modern warfare techniques, including those we now know had explosives, to storm the Capitol to stop the process of inaugurating the duly elected president. We have been exceedingly lucky in that we have not seen much more bloodshed, but luck is not a good strategy for a country looking for better ways to move forward," end quote. So Jason, as we say goodbye here to you this morning, how do you characterize the strength of the Oath Keepers right now? Stronger than before January 6th, or weakened by the prosecutions and the events after?
I think that remains to be seen. I think we're definitely in a kind of a holding pattern. We're seeing what's going to happen with what the DOJ is doing. And either way, there's going to be some questions. You know, if they were able to hold Stewart Rhodes to account, the real question is, who's going to rise up to fill that vacuum? And will they be a leader that's willing to, you know, Stewart was really good at kind of towing that legal line and not crossing it. But if we have a leader that's willing to lead the charge, that might change the dynamic and make things even more dangerous than they already are.
And Spencer, as we said earlier, up on charges of seditious conspiracy now. Former spokesman for the Oath Keepers, Jason Van Tatenhove. Jason, thank you. Jason's upcoming book titled The Propagandist, Oath Keepers and the Perils of Extremism. Mika.
Well, this goes perfectly into our next